Dramily.com, unlimited drama series.
The champagne bubbles rose in lazy spirals, just like the lies floating through my living room. I'm Soren Valden, and I've spent 15 years in security consulting, which means I notice things other people miss. Tonight, watching my wife Mira work the crowd at our anniversary party, I was noticing plenty. "Darling, you simply must try the salmon," Mira cooed to her friend Jessica, her voice carrying that artificial sweetness she reserved for public performances. The same tone she'd used earlier when introducing me as my wonderful husband, who keeps us all so safe. Safe. Right. I nursed my whiskey and watched from the corner of our modern Boston suburb home, cataloging every whispered conversation, every meaningful glance. 15 years of marriage had taught me to read the room like a security assessment. Tonight, the threat level was elevated. Mira's sister Lara lounged against the marble countertop, her dark hair cascading over one shoulder as she laughed at something Eric Delacroix was saying. Eric, my wife's college boyfriend, now a tech startup, CEO with more money than sense, and a smile that made my teeth ache. He'd shown up uninvited, claiming he was in the neighborhood. In our neighborhood. At 10 p.m. on a Tuesday. "Soren," Mayor's voice cut through the ambient chatter. "Come join us. We're sharing embarrassing stories." I approached their little circle, noting how Eric's hand rested casually on the back of Mira's chair. How Lara's eyes glittered with something that wasn't champagne. How Jessica and the other PR friends formed a semicircle like spectators at a gladiator match. "Oh, this is perfect timing," Mira continued, her cheeks flushed. "I was just telling everyone about my biggest regret." The room quieted. Even the catering staff seemed to slow their movements. "My biggest regret," Mira said, looking directly at me with those green eyes I'd once thought beautiful, "is choosing Soren over Eric all those years ago." The silence stretched like a wire about to snap. I felt every eye in the room turn toward me, waiting for my reaction. Some faces showed shock. Others barely concealed amusement. Eric's expression was pure satisfaction. I took a slow sip of whiskey, letting the moment breathe. Then I smiled. "Well, that's interesting," I said, my voice carrying easily through the quiet room. "My biggest regret is not choosing your sister instead." Lara straightened, her eyes widening. "We can fix that," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, but somehow audible to everyone. The room erupted. Gasps, nervous laughter, the clink of someone setting down their glass too hard. Mira's face went through several shades of red before settling on a dangerous pale. "I was joking," she said quickly, but her voice lacked conviction. "Were you?" I asked, still smiling. "Because Eric doesn't look surprised, and neither does Lara." Eric cleared his throat. "Maybe we should—" No, I interrupted, raising my glass. "Let's toast to regrets, and second chances, and family loyalty." I caught Lara's eye as I said it, noting the way she bit her lower lip. Interesting. The party limped along for another hour, but the damage was done. Conversations became stilted, laughter forced. Guests began making their excuses, thanking us for a memorable evening. As I walked the last guest to the door, I overheard Jessica whispering to another friend, "I can't believe she actually said that. In front of everyone. Did you see his face? I thought he was going to lose it." Eric looked way too comfortable for someone who just heard that. After the door closed behind the final guest, I began collecting glasses and plates. Mira had disappeared upstairs, claiming a headache. Lara helped me clean, moving with unusual quiet efficiency. "That was quite a performance tonight," I said as we loaded the dishwasher. "Which part?" she asked, not meeting my eyes. "All of it. But especially your contribution." She straightened, finally looking at me. "Soren, It's fine, Lara, really. I just find it fascinating how coordinated everything seemed." She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it. Smart woman. After she left, I sat in my home office, staring at my computer screen. 15 years of marriage, and it had come to this. Public humiliation disguised as a joke. But here's the thing about working in security. You learn to think several steps ahead. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a small device. Nothing illegal, nothing fancy. Just a basic phone cloning tool that I'd used for legitimate security assessments. The kind of thing that could copy text messages, call logs, even app data if you had physical access to the target device. Mira's phone sat on the kitchen counter, where she always left it to charge overnight. She'd never changed her passcode from our anniversary date. Sentimental, really. The cloning process took less than 5 minutes. Back in my office, I scrolled through her messages. Most were mundane: work stuff, plans with friends, complaints about her mother. But then I found the group chat. Party Planning Committee, it was called. Members included Mara, Lara, Eric, Jessica, and 2 other friends. The messages went back 3 weeks. Eric: looking forward to seeing everyone Tuesday. Been too long. Mira: it'll be fun. Soren's been so stressed with work lately. Lara: maybe we can help him relax. Jessica: OMG, you two are terrible. Mira: what? I'm just saying, sometimes people need a wake-up call. Eric: agreed. Some people get too comfortable. I scrolled down, my jaw tightening with each message. Lara: so we're really doing this? Mira: why not? It's harmless fun. Besides, he never fights back. Eric: that's what makes it perfect. He'll just take it. Jessica: what if he doesn't? Mira: trust me, I know my husband. He'll sulk for a few days and then pretend it never happened. Lara: and if he doesn't? Mira: then we push harder. Let's see if he'll break yet. Lara's in, right? Lara: I'm in. I leaned back in my chair, processing what I just read. A coordinated attack, a game to them, a test to see how much I'd take before I broke. I poured myself another whiskey and began taking screenshots. They thought they knew me, thought I was weak, passive, someone who'd absorbed their cruelty and asked for more. They'd spent weeks planning tonight's humiliation, choreographing every moment like a particularly vicious ballet. But here's what they didn't know about me. I'd spent 15 years learning from the best. Corporate executives, government officials, people who played games for stakes much higher than hurt feelings. I'd watched them scheme, plot, and ultimately destroy each other. I'd learned their methods, their weaknesses, their tells. And now it was my turn to play. I opened a new document and began typing. Not a plan exactly. More like a security assessment. Target identification, vulnerability analysis, resource allocation. The same process I used for corporate clients, but with a more personal objective. My phone buzzed with a text from my brother Nicholas. How was the party? I smiled as I typed back, educational. Can we meet tomorrow? I have a project that might interest you. Nicholas ran a private investigation firm. Former cop, current expert in information gathering and discreet surveillance. He'd helped me with background checks for corporate clients before. This would be different, but the skills were transferable. I finished my whiskey and headed upstairs. Mara was already asleep, or pretending to be. I slipped into bed quietly, my mind racing with possibilities. They wanted to see if I'd break? Fine. But they'd made one crucial mistake in their planning. They'd assumed I was the same man I'd been 15 years ago. The guy who'd married Mira because she was beautiful and charming and made me feel lucky to be chosen. That man might have broken. But I wasn't that man anymore. Game on. Nicholas looked like what central casting would order for grizzled ex-cop turned private investigator. 45 years old, gray at the temples, shoulders that had seen their share of trouble. We met at his office downtown, a cramped space above a deli that smelled permanently of pastrami and disappointment. So, he said, settling behind his desk, with a cup of coffee that looked strong enough to strip paint, your wife publicly humiliated you at your own anniversary party. That's the simplified version. And you want to do something about it. I slid my phone across his desk. I want you to look at these. Messages first. He scrolled through the screenshots, his expression growing darker with each swipe. Jesus, Soren, this is cold. Calculated. 3 weeks of planning. They turned my anniversary into their entertainment. And the sister was in on it? Apparently, though. I paused, thinking about Lara's expression when I'd mentioned family loyalty. I'm not entirely sure how committed she is to their cause. Nicholas leaned back in his chair. What exactly are you looking for here? Because if you want me to follow your wife around with a camera, that's going to get expensive fast. I don't need you to follow her. I need you to help me understand what I'm dealing with. Background checks on Eric, analysis of their communications patterns, that sort of thing. Think of it as a security assessment on your own family, on people who've declared war on me. The family part ended when they decided to make me their target. He studied me for a long moment. You've changed, you know. The Soren I knew 5 years ago would have just taken this and moved on. The Soren from 5 years ago hadn't spent the last decade learning how power really works, how information flows, how to identify weaknesses and exploit them. And you want to exploit theirs. I want to level the playing field. Nicholas grinned, and for a moment I could see the cop he used to be. Now you're talking my language. What do you need? We spent the next 2 hours going through everything. Eric's business history, his previous relationships, his social media presence, Mira's work connections, her financial situation, her family dynamics, even Lara's background, though I suspected she might prove more ally than enemy. Eric's interesting, Nicholas said, pulling up a series of articles on his computer. His startup burned through 2 rounds of funding in 18 months. They're bleeding money, and the investors are getting nervous. How nervous? Nervous enough that a public scandal could tank the whole company. His reputation is basically the only asset they have left. I made a note. What about Mira's work? Public relations firm, like you said. But here's the thing. They just landed a major contract with the city. Very image-conscious client. Any hint of scandal, and they'll drop her faster than a hot potato. Both of them are vulnerable to reputational damage. Extremely vulnerable. One public embarrassment could destroy both their careers. I smiled. Then we'd better make sure it's a good one. We agreed to meet again in a few days. Nicholas would dig deeper into Eric's business dealings and Mara's professional relationships. I would continue monitoring their communications and gathering evidence. That evening, I arrived home to find Mira in the kitchen, preparing what looked like an elaborate dinner. She'd changed into a dress I'd bought her for her birthday, and her hair was styled the way I used to love. Hi, honey, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. I thought we could have a nice quiet dinner. Just the two of us. How thoughtful. She bustled around the kitchen, chattering about her day at work, the weather, anything except the previous night. I sat at the counter and watched her performance, wondering if she'd always been this transparent or if I'd just learned to see through her. About last night, she finally said, setting a plate in front of me. I think maybe the champagne got to me a little. You know how I get when I've been drinking. Do I? Oh, come on, Soren. You know I didn't mean anything by it. It was just silly party talk. I took a bite of the salmon. It was perfectly prepared, seasoned exactly how I liked it. She'd put real effort into this meal, this reconciliation attempt. Eric seemed to think it was funny, I said casually. Her fork paused halfway to her mouth. Eric laughs at everything. You know how he is. Actually, I don't. I haven't seen him in years. Funny how he just happened to show up last night. He was in the neighborhood. I told you. At 10 p.m. on a Tuesday. She set down her fork. What are you getting at, Soren? Nothing. Just making conversation. We finished dinner in relative silence. Mira kept glancing at me, clearly trying to gauge my mood. I kept my expression neutral, giving her nothing to read. After dinner, she suggested we watch a movie. Something romantic, she said. Like old times. I agreed, settling onto the couch beside her as she scrolled through options. My phone buzzed with a text from Nicholas. Check your email. Found something interesting about Eric's ex-wife. I waited until Mira was absorbed in the movie, then quietly opened my laptop. Nicholas had sent a link to a gossip blog post from 2 years ago. The headline read, Tech CEO Eric Delacroix's messy divorce. Cheating scandal rocks startup world. The article detailed Eric's affair with a business partner's wife, complete with photos and screenshots of text messages. His ex-wife had apparently hired a very thorough private investigator. More interesting was the pattern. Eric had a history of targeting married women, particularly those in stable relationships. The challenge seemed to be part of the appeal. I bookmarked the article and closed the laptop. Good movie? I asked. Mira startled slightly. Oh, yes, very romantic. The romantic comedy was actually a thriller about a woman who discovers her husband is a serial liar. Either Mira had incredibly poor timing, or she was sending me a message. The next morning, I implemented phase 1 of my response strategy. I called Mira's mother Helen, a woman who collected gossip like some people collected stamps, and had the social influence to make or break reputations in their circle. Helen, it's Soren. I wanted to thank you for not being able to make it to the party last night. Oh, darling, I'm so sorry I missed it. How did it go? Well, it was certainly memorable. Mira shared some very interesting thoughts about our marriage in front of everyone. What kind of thoughts? I could hear the curiosity sharpening her voice. Helen lived for drama, especially when it involved her daughter. Oh, I probably
90 days of calls to the same number. You bought a burner for her.
Give it to me.
One reason not to drop it.
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
shouldn't repeat it. You know how these things get blown out of proportion. Soren, you can't just say something like that and not explain. Well, if you insist. She announced to the entire party that her biggest regret was marrying me instead of Eric Delacroix. The silence on the other end stretched for nearly 10 seconds. She said what? In front of all her friends. And Eric was there, of course. Very awkward for everyone. Eric was there? At your anniversary party? Showed up uninvited. Said he was in the neighborhood. I could practically hear Helen's mind racing. She'd never liked Eric. Had actively campaigned against him when he and Mira dated in college. I'm sure she didn't mean it, Helen said, but her voice lacked conviction. I hope not. Though Lara seemed to think it was a great idea. Said we could fix that right there at the party. Another silence. Helen's relationship with her younger daughter was complicated at best. Lara had always been the rebellious one, the troublemaker. I think I need to have a conversation with my daughters, Helen said. Oh, please don't make a big deal out of it. I'm sure it was just the champagne talking. But I knew Helen well enough to know that asking her not to make a big deal out of something was like asking water not to be wet. After I hung up, I checked Mira's messages. Sure enough, her phone was already buzzing with texts from her mother. Helen, call me immediately. Helen, Soren told me about last night. What were you thinking? Helen, Eric Delacroix? Really, Mira? I watched in real time as Mira's carefully constructed world began to tilt. Her response was predictable. Mother, it's not what you think. Soren is overreacting. Helen, he didn't sound like he was overreacting. He sounded hurt. Mira, it was a joke. Everyone knew it was a joke. Helen, and Lara? Was she joking too? No response to that one. I poured myself a cup of coffee and settled in to watch the show. Within an hour, Mira had received concerned texts from 3 different family members, all wanting to know what had happened at the party. The beauty of Helen's network was its efficiency. By noon, half of Mira's social circle would know that she'd publicly humiliated her husband at their anniversary party. By evening, the story would have grown in the telling, becoming more scandalous with each retelling. Mira came home that afternoon looking frazzled. Did you call my mother? She demanded, dropping her purse on the kitchen counter with more force than necessary. She called me, actually. Wanted to know how the party went. And you told her the truth, that you announced your regret about marrying me in front of everyone. It was a joke, Soren. Was it? Because Eric didn't look surprised. And neither did Lara, or Jessica for that matter. She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it. For a moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Fear, maybe. Or recognition that her carefully planned game wasn't going according to script. Look, she said, her voice softening. Maybe it wasn't the best joke. But you have to admit, you got me back pretty good with that comment about Lara. Did I? Because she seemed to think it was a great idea. Mira's face went pale. She was just playing along. Maybe. Or maybe she was serious. Hard to tell with family, isn't it? You never really know where their loyalties lie. That evening, Lara called. I answered on speaker, making sure Mira could hear every word. Soren, I wanted to apologize for last night. Things got out of hand. Did they? I thought everything went exactly as planned. A pause. What do you mean? Nothing. Just that everyone seemed to know their role. Very coordinated. I think maybe we should talk. Just the two of us. Mira was making frantic gestures, shaking her head. I'd like that, I said. How about coffee tomorrow? Perfect. I'll text you the details. After I hung up, Mira stared at me. You're not actually going to meet with her? Why wouldn't I? She's family. Soren, please, don't drag Lara into whatever this is. I'm not dragging anyone anywhere. But if she wants to talk, I'm willing to listen. That night, Mira's phone buzzed constantly with messages from the group chat. I watched the conversation unfold in real time. Jessica, Helen called my mom. She's furious about last night. Mira, it's fine. I'll handle my mother. Eric, maybe we should cool it for a while. Let things settle down. Lara, I'm meeting with Soren tomorrow. Mira, what? Why? Lara, to apologize like a decent human being. Eric, that's not a good idea. Lara, I don't remember asking for your opinion. Jessica, this is getting messy. Mira, Lara, please don't make this worse. Lara, worse than what? Worse than publicly humiliating your husband at your anniversary party? Eric, we agreed this was harmless fun. Lara, you agreed. I'm starting to think this was a mistake. I smiled as I read the last message. Doubt was creeping in. The unified front was beginning to crack. And tomorrow, I'd have a chance to widen that crack into a chasm. The coffee shop Lara chose was neutral territory, a busy Starbucks downtown where we could talk without being overheard. She arrived 5 minutes after me, looking nervous in a way I'd never seen before. Thanks for meeting me, she said, sliding into the chair across from mine. Of course, we're family. She winced at that. About last night. I owe you an explanation. I sipped my coffee and waited. In security work, silence was often your best interrogation tool. People felt compelled to fill the void. Mira came to me 3 weeks ago with this idea. She said you'd been distant lately, that your marriage needed a spark. She thought a little jealousy might wake you up, make you fight for her. And you believe that? I wanted to. Mira can be very convincing when she wants something. What did she want, Lara? She stared into her latte. I think she wanted to hurt you, and I think she wanted me to help her do it. Why? Because she's always been jealous of us, of our friendship. She used to joke that you married the wrong sister, but lately it hasn't felt like joking. I leaned back, processing this. So when I said my biggest regret was not choosing you instead, you hit closer to home than you knew. And when I said we can fix that, I wasn't thinking about her plan anymore. I was thinking about something else entirely. Which was? She met my eyes for the first time since sitting down. That maybe you should have chosen me, and maybe it's not too late. The conversation took an unexpected turn. I'd come here to gather intelligence, to assess whether Lara was truly an ally, or just another player in Mara's game. Instead, I found myself looking at a woman I'd known for 15 years and seeing her clearly for the first time. Lara. I know this is complicated, she said quickly. I know the timing is terrible, but I can't keep pretending that what happened last night was okay. Mira set out to humiliate you, and she used me to do it. I'm done being her weapon. I reached across the table and took her hand. What are you willing to do about it? What do you mean? I mean, are you willing to help me level the playing field? Because this isn't over. Last night was just the opening move. She squeezed my hand. What do you need? I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots of the group chat. Her face went through several expressions as she read shock, anger, disgust. She really wrote this? About her own husband? Your sister has been planning my humiliation for weeks. The question is, are you going to help her finish the job? Or are you going to help me turn the tables? Lara was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, and I saw something in her expression that reminded me why I'd always enjoyed her company. What do you need me to do? We spent the next hour planning. Lara would continue participating in the group chat, but now she'd be feeding me information instead of helping them plot against me. She'd also help me understand the dynamics between Eric and Mira, the extent of their relationship, and their vulnerabilities. "There's something else you should know," she said as we prepared to leave. "Eric and Mira have been meeting for coffee every week for the past month, always at the Marriott downtown, always on Thursday afternoons." "Meetings about what?" "I assumed it was about planning your humiliation, but now I'm wondering if there's more to it." I made a mental note to have Nicholas check the Marriott's security cameras. That afternoon, I implemented phase 2 of my strategy. I called a family dinner. Helen loved hosting family gatherings, especially when there was drama to dissect. I knew she'd been stewing about Mara's behavior since our phone call, and she'd want a chance to address it publicly. "What a wonderful idea," she said when I suggested it. "It's been too long since we all got together. I thought it might be nice to clear the air after last night." "Yes, I think that's very important. I'll call everyone." By evening, the dinner was arranged for the following night. Helen's house, 7 p.m. Mandatory attendance for all family members. Mara was not pleased. "Why would you arrange a family dinner without talking to me first?" she demanded as I hung up the phone. "I thought it would be nice. Your mother misses seeing everyone together." "This is about last night, isn't it? You're going to try to embarrass me in front of my family." "How could I embarrass you?" "By telling them what you said at our anniversary party, in front of all our friends?" She had no answer for that. The next evening, we gathered in Helen's dining room. The full cast was there. Helen and her husband Robert, Mira and me, Laura and her boyfriend David, plus Mira's Aunt Susan and Uncle Frank. A captive audience for what I had planned. Dinner conversation was strained. Everyone knew something was wrong, but nobody wanted to be the first to address it directly. I waited until dessert was served, then stood up. "I'd like to say something, if that's okay." Helen nodded encouragingly. "Of course, dear. I want to thank you all for coming tonight. Family's so important, especially during difficult times. And Mira and I have been going through a difficult time lately." Mira's face went pale. "Soren, maybe this isn't—" "No, I think it's important to be honest with family. To share what's really going on in our lives." I pulled out my phone and connected it to Helen's Bluetooth speaker system. "I thought you might like to hear what your daughter really thinks about our marriage." "Soren, don't—" Mira started to stand. "Please sit down. This won't take long." I pressed play. Mira's voice filled the dining room, crystal clear. "My biggest regret is choosing Soren over Eric all those years ago." The silence was deafening. Helen's fork clattered against her plate. Then Lara's voice. "We can fix that." More silence. Robert cleared his throat. Susan and Frank exchanged glances. David looked like he wanted to disappear under the table. "This was recorded at our anniversary party," I explained calmly. "2 nights ago, in front of all our friends." Helen found her voice first. "Mira Elizabeth, what is the meaning of this?" "It was a joke, Mother. A stupid joke." "It doesn't sound like a joke," Frank said. "It sounds like you meant every word." "And Eric was there?" Susan asked. "At your anniversary party?" "He showed up uninvited," I said. "Said he was in the neighborhood." "At 10 p.m., Laura added helpfully, "on a Tuesday." All eyes turned to Mira. She looked trapped, desperate. "You don't understand," she said. "It's not what it sounds like." "Then explain it," Helen demanded. "Explain how humiliating your husband in public is supposed to be funny." We, it was just," she couldn't finish the sentence. "How do you explain a coordinated campaign of emotional cruelty to people who raised you to be better?" "There's more," I said, scrolling through my phone. "Would you like to hear what she said about me in private? To her friends?" "No!" Mira jumped up from her chair. "That's enough. You've made your point." "Have I?" "Because I'm not sure everyone understands the full scope of what's been happening." I looked around the table at faces ranging from shocked to disgusted to deeply disappointed. Mission accomplished. "I think we should go," Mira said, grabbing her purse. "Yes," Helen said coldly. "I think you should." As we drove home in silence, I could feel Mira's fury radiating from the passenger seat. But underneath the anger, I sensed something else. Fear. Her phone buzzed constantly with texts from family members. I didn't need to clone her device to know what they were saying. Helen's network was efficient, and by tomorrow morning, everyone in their social circle would know that Mira had publicly humiliated her husband and then been confronted about it by her own family. "You planned this," she said finally, as we pulled into our driveway. I responded to it. There's a difference. "This is war. You know that, right?" I turned off the engine and looked at her. "No, Mira. War is what you declared on me 3 weeks ago when you started planning my humiliation. This is just me finally fighting back." That night, the group chat exploded with activity. Eric, "What the hell happened at dinner?" Mira, "He recorded us. At the party, he played it for my entire family." Jessica, "Oh my God, are you serious?" Mira, "My mother won't even talk to me." Eric, "How did he get a recording?" Laura, "Maybe because you weren't exactly subtle about it." Jessica, "This is bad, really bad." Mira, "I need to fix this." Eric, "How?" Mira, "I don't know, but I'm not going down without a fight." I smiled as I read the last message. She wanted a fight. Perfect. Because I was just getting started. The next morning, I received a call from Nicholas. "You're not going to believe what I found on those Marriott security cameras," he said. "Try me. Your wife and Eric have been doing more than just having coffee. A lot more." "How much more?" "Let's just say they've been renting a room. Every Thursday for the past 6 weeks." I felt a strange calm settle over me. Not anger, not hurt, just clarity. "Can you get me copies of the footage?" "Already done." "But Soren, if you're thinking of using this in a divorce," "I'm not thinking about divorce. I'm thinking about justice." Because now I understood what this was really about. The humiliation at the party hadn't been